The alarm didn't scream. It whispered. That's what made Observer Thane look up from his cold meal. In 15 years at Observation Post Theta 7, he'd learned that quiet alarms meant something the system didn't understand. Loud alarms meant danger. Quiet ones meant confusion. Thane, you seeing this? Operative Jex called from across the monitoring bay. Her voice carried that edge of uncertainty that made experienced observers nervous. Thane set down his ration pack and moved to his console. The screen showed a sensor reading that made no sense. An object, moving. But the speed calculation kept resetting, climbing higher each time before crashing back to zero. Run a diagnostic, Thane said, keeping his voice steady. Full system check. They'd done this dance before. Space was full of strange phenomena. Stellar winds could create phantom readings. Debris fields could bounce signals in odd ways. Collapsing micro-wormholes could produce sensor ghosts that looked like ships. But this felt different. The diagnostic came back clean. All systems functioning normally. The object was still there, still moving, still impossible. Distance? Thane asked. That's the problem, Jex replied, her fingers dancing across her console. It was 0.7 light-years out. Then 0.5. Now it's at 0.2. That's impossible movement in the time we've been watching. Thane felt cold spread through his chest. Nothing moves that fast. This does. Observation Post Theta 7 sat on the very edge of the Kelvari Empire's territory. It was a forgotten post, a punishment assignment for officers who'd angered someone important. Nothing ever happened here. The Empire's borders were secure. Their enemies were conquered or contained. Space was empty and safe, until now. Activate deep scan, Thane ordered. I want everything. Mass, composition, energy signature, quantum resonance, everything. The deep scan was their most powerful tool, capable of reading a ship's registry from 3 systems away. It could identify the molecular composition of hull plating, detect life signs through military-grade shielding, and categorize any known vessel type in the Imperial database. Thane watched the scan progress bar fill. 50%, 75, 90. Then every screen in the observation post went black. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. Backup systems hummed to life, and slowly the main screens flickered back on. The object was closer now. Much closer. 0.05 light-years, practically on top of them in cosmic terms. What just happened? Jex asked, her voice tight. The scan crashed everything, another operative said. His name was Ryle, a young officer on his first deep space assignment. Like it hit something and bounced back too hard. Thane's hands moved across his console, pulling up system logs. What he saw made his stomach turn. The deep scan had made contact with the object. For exactly 0.3 seconds, they'd gotten data. Then the object had sent something back. Not a response, a pulse. A wave of energy that had overloaded every sensor array on the post. Did it just scan us back? Jex whispered. Before Thane could answer, the main view screen flickered. Usually it showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. Now it showed something else, a ship. But calling it a ship felt wrong. It was sleek and dark, like a blade made of shadow. No running lights. No engine glow. No heat signature that their sensors could detect. It simply existed in space, somehow darker than the void around it. The design was wrong, too. Imperial ships were built for intimidation, with sharp angles and weapon arrays bristling from every surface. This vessel was smooth, almost organic. It looked like it had been grown rather than built. Get me a classification, Thane said. Match it against every known design in the database. Ryle worked frantically. No match. It's not Imperial. Not Grethian. Not Salvine. Not anything in our records. Then it's new, Jex said. Some breakaway colony? A pirate design? Thane shook his head slowly. Pirates don't have ships that move faster than light sensors can track. And colonies don't build vessels that can crash our systems with a single pulse. He pulled up the communication system. Unknown vessel, this is Kelvari Observation Post Theta 7. You have entered Imperial space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately, silence answered him. The ship hung in space, motionless now, waiting. Thane sent the message again, then a third time. Nothing. Activate emergency beacon, he ordered. Priority alert to Imperial Defense Command. Unknown contact. Possible hostile. Requesting immediate support. The beacon launched, a tight beam transmission that would reach command in minutes. Help would take hours to arrive, but at least they'd know what happened here if things went wrong. Thane, Jex said quietly. It's moving again. The ship accelerated, not with engine burn or thrust. It simply started moving, going from stationary to incredible speed in an instant. The observers watched it streak past their post, close enough that they should have felt gravitational effects. But their instruments registered nothing. No mass displacement, no energy wake, then it was gone. Did we just imagine that? Ryle asked. Thane was already pulling up the recording logs. The ship was there, captured on multiple sensors, solid, real, impossible. Send everything to command, he said. Every scan, every image, every reading. Mark it urgent. The next hour passed in tense silence. They maintained full alert, watching their sensors for any sign of the vessel's return. Command acknowledged their transmission with a standard automated response. Then nothing. Thane used the silence to dig into the archives. Something about the ship nagged at him. The design language felt almost familiar, though he couldn't place why. He pulled up historical files, searching through decades of observation reports from Theta 7 and surrounding posts. Most were routine. Asteroid surveys, stellar drift measurements, the occasional debris field from ancient battles. Then he found something. A report from 30 years ago filed by the previous commander of Theta 7. It described a sensor anomaly, an unidentified object moving at impossible speeds. The investigation had been closed with a simple notation: sensor malfunction, equipment replaced, no further action required. Thane felt his pulse quicken. He searched deeper, expanding his query across all frontier observation posts. More reports appeared. 40 years ago, 60, 100, all describing similar phenomena, all dismissed as equipment failures or natural anomalies. But there were patterns. The sightings clustered in certain regions. They appeared in waves years apart, and each time the objects moved a little faster, appeared a little closer to Imperial space, like something was testing their defenses, learning their capabilities, getting bolder. Thane, command is responding, Jex announced. The message came through marked with low priority, a bureaucrat's response to what they clearly thought was another false alarm. Stand down from alert status, file detailed report, maintain standard observation protocols. A follow-up inspection would be scheduled within the quarter. They don't believe us, Ryle said, disbelief in his voice. They didn't see it, Thane replied. But that wasn't quite true. Command had all the data. They simply chose not to take it seriously. He was about to respond when Jex gasped. Thane, sensors are going crazy. Not here, everywhere. She threw the data to the main screen. Across a dozen different sectors, observation posts were reporting identical contacts. Ships, multiple ships, all with the same impossible characteristics. No identification, no origin. Moving faster than anything should move. The pattern was clear now. They weren't dealing with one vessel. This was a fleet, and they'd been revealed deliberately all at once across thousands of light years of space. It was a message, a demonstration. They wanted the Empire to know they were here. Thane sent another transmission to command, this one marked with every emergency code he knew. The response came faster this time. Imperial Defense Command was scrambling. Fleet deployments were being authorized. Someone higher up the chain had finally paid attention. Within hours, Fleet Commander Vera's face appeared on the communication screen. She was a career officer, known for her tactical brilliance and her skepticism of unverified reports. Observer Thane, she said without preamble. I've reviewed your data. I've also reviewed similar reports from 11 other posts. Tell me what I'm looking at. Thane chose his words carefully. Unknown vessels of non-imperial origin, demonstrating technological capabilities far beyond our current understanding. They appear to be conducting coordinated reconnaissance across our entire frontier. Reconnaissance implies intelligence, Vera said. You're suggesting these are deliberate incursions by an organized force? Yes, Commander. Vera was quiet for a moment. In 300 years, the Kelvari Empire has encountered 17 spacefaring species. We've cataloged their ships, their weapons, their capabilities. None of them match what you're describing. I know, Commander. So either you're reporting a sensor malfunction of unprecedented scale, or we're dealing with someone new, someone who's been hiding, someone who waited until they were ready before showing themselves. Thane met her gaze through the screen. I believe it's the latter, Commander. Vera nodded slowly. I'm dispatching patrol squadrons to your sector, and 5 others where contacts were most significant. If these ships appear again, we'll be ready. Vera out. The screen went dark. Thane turned back to his console, pulling up the historical reports again. Something still bothered him about the ship design, that sense of familiarity. He expanded his search parameters, going back further. 150 years, 200. The Empire's records became sparse at that distance, many files lost or corrupted. Then he found it. A design schematic buried in a military archive marked for deletion. The file was incomplete, damaged, but enough remained to see the vessel's profile. Sleek, blade-like, organic curves instead of angular edges. The notation at the bottom made Thane's blood run cold. Terran experimental craft. Project Exodus presumed destroyed with all others. Terran, human, but that was impossible. The humans were gone. 300 years ago, the Empire had conquered Earth and its colonies systematically, world by world. It had been brutal, efficient, complete. The humans had fought desperately, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and ultimately doomed. The Empire had made sure. Every human world burned, every station destroyed, every ship hunted down and eliminated. It had taken decades, but the task was finished. The humans were extinct, except this ship looked human. And if one human ship survived, how many others might there be? Thane was about to send this information to Commander Vera, when every alarm in observation post Theta 7 started screaming. Not whispering this time, screaming, multiple contacts. Jex shouted. 20, no, 30. They're everywhere. The view screen filled with images from across Imperial space. The mysterious ships had returned, and this time they weren't hiding. They appeared above major military installations, orbital stations, even the outskirts of populated systems. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All identical to the vessel Thane had seen. All moving with that impossible speed and grace, and then, simultaneously across every observation post, every military frequency, every communication channel in the Empire, a transmission came through. It was audio only, a voice. Human. Speaking in perfect Kelvari, but with an accent that belonged to history books. 300 years ago, you tried to erase us. You burned our worlds. You hunted our people. You thought you succeeded, the voice paused. In that silence, Thane could hear the weight of centuries. You were wrong. We survived. We fled beyond your reach. We adapted. We evolved. We became something you never imagined we could become. Another pause. Every person in the observation post stood frozen, listening. We have not returned for revenge. We have returned for something else. For acknowledgement. For truth. For justice. The transmission ended. The ships remained, hovering in space like dark promises, and Thane understood. This wasn't an invasion. This was a reckoning. The ghosts of humanity's past had returned, and the Empire would finally have to face what it had done. He looked at Jex and Ryle, saw his own shock reflected in their faces. The comfortable certainty of Imperial superiority had just shattered. Everything they'd been taught about the Empire's great victory over the humans, about the necessity of that conquest, was about to be challenged. On his console, a new message appeared from Fleet Command. All posts were to maintain position and monitor the situation. No hostile action unless fired upon first. Someone in command, at least, understood the gravity of what was happening. Thane settled back into his chair, eyes on the view screen where one of the dark ships hung against the stars. Somewhere in that vessel were humans, descendants of the people the Empire had tried to destroy. People who had every reason to be angry, to seek revenge, but they'd asked for justice instead. The question now was whether the Empire would give it to them, or whether pride would lead to a war the Empire could not possibly win. As Thane watched and waited, he realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The Empire had lived with comfortable lies for 3 centuries. That comfort was over. The truth had returned, and it was faster, smarter, and more dangerous than anyone had imagined possible. The Revelation Captain Morse of the patrol ship Valiant Dawn had served in the Imperial fleet for 23 years. She'd fought pirates, suppressed rebellions, and patrolled the loneliest regions of space. Nothing in that experience prepared her for this moment. Her ship floated 3 kilometers from one of the mysterious vessels. Close enough to see details, close enough to realize how outmatched they were. "Captain," her communications officer said, voice trembling slightly, "we're receiving a transmission. It's requesting permission to establish a direct channel." Morse straightened in her command chair. "Requesting permission? Not demanding?" "Yes, ma'am. The exact words are, "We request dialogue. Will you listen?" Around the bridge, her crew waited. They'd heard the broadcast like everyone else. They knew these were human ships. The humans the Empire had supposedly destroyed 3 centuries ago. "Open the channel," Morse said, audio and visual. The main screen flickered. A face appeared, human unmistakably. A woman with dark skin and gray hair, wearing a uniform that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Her eyes carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much, survived too much. "Captain Morse," the woman said. "My name is Admiral Kendra Okafor. I command the Terran Remnant Fleet. Thank you for accepting this communication." Morse found her voice. "You know my name. We know many things about the Kelvari Empire. We've been watching for a very long time." Okafor's expression remained neutral, professional. "I imagine you have questions. How?" Morse asked. "How did you survive? The records say every human world was destroyed, every ship accounted for." Okafor nodded slowly. "Your empire was thorough. I won't deny that. But 300 years ago, as your fleets closed in on Earth, we launched a desperate gamble. Project Exodus, 12 experimental ships, each carrying 10,000 people. Our best scientists, engineers, soldiers, and ordinary citizens chosen by lottery." She paused, and for a moment, something like pain crossed her face. "We fled into deep space, beyond charted territory, into regions so hostile that your empire never bothered to follow. We knew we couldn't fight you. So we ran, and we kept running. 12 ships, Morse said. I saw the reports. Hundreds of your vessels are out there now. We didn't just run, Captain. We survived. We adapted. We built." Okafor gestured off-screen. "Those 12 ships became mobile shipyards. We mined asteroids in deep space. We developed technologies your empire never imagined. We had no choice. It was evolve or die." Morse felt a chill. "You've been preparing. All this time." "No," Okafor said firmly. "We've been surviving. There's a difference. For the first century, we focused on staying alive in the void, building infrastructure, creating sustainable habitats. We had children who grew up never seeing a planet, only the inside of ships." The Admiral's eyes hardened. "The second century, we mourned. We processed what was done to us. Entire worlds, billions of people, gone. Every person in our fleet lost someone. Family, friends, entire cultures erased." "And the third century?" Morse asked quietly. "We decided what we would become. We had the technology to return to wage war. Our ships are faster, our weapons more advanced. We could destroy your empire as thoroughly as you destroyed us." Okafor leaned forward. "But we chose differently. We chose to be better than you were. We chose justice over vengeance." On Morse's tactical display, her weapons officer sent a priority message. Their scans had finally penetrated some of the human ship's defenses. What they found was terrifying. Power readings off the scale. Weapon systems that made Imperial battleships look like toys. Shielding technology that bent space itself. If the humans wanted war, it would be over in days. "What do you want?" Morse asked. "Acknowledgement," Okafor replied. "Your empire committed genocide. 300 years of propaganda have turned that genocide into a heroic conquest. Your children learn in school about the great victory over the primitive humans. They don't learn about the billions who died screaming. The words hit like physical blows. Morse had learned exactly that in school. The humans had been portrayed as aggressive, dangerous, a threat that had to be eliminated for the Empire's security. "We want the truth told," Okafor continued. "We want the historical records corrected. We want your people to know what was really done in their name. The High Council will never agree to that," Morse said. "It would undermine everything the Empire stands for." "Then let me show you something." Okafor made a gesture. "We're transmitting data to your ship. Full historical records from the conquest. Unedited footage. Civilian transmissions. Everything we managed to save." Warning lights flashed on Morse's console as massive data streams flooded into the Valiant Dawn systems. Her crew scrambled to manage the influx. "Ma'am," the communications officer said, "she's not just sending it to us. She's broadcasting on every open channel, every observation post, every civilian station, every ship in range. It's going everywhere." Morse felt her stomach drop. The Empire couldn't suppress this. It was too widespread, too sudden. Millions of people were receiving this information simultaneously. On her screen, Okafor watched calmly. "You can't hide the truth forever, Captain. We've given your people the evidence. What they do with it is their choice." Morse pulled up a sample of the transmitted files. Her hand shook as she opened the first one. It was footage from a human city. Families going about their daily lives. Children playing. Then the sky filled with Imperial warships. What followed was systematic destruction. No warning, no mercy. Just death. She closed the file, feeling sick. Why show me this? Because you're not our enemy, Captain. You weren't born when these things happened. You're a soldier following orders just like we were. Okafor's expression softened slightly. But you deserve to know the truth of what your empire was built on. Across Imperial space, chaos was erupting. Morse could see emergency transmissions flooding the command channels. Civilian stations were in uproar as people watched the historical files. Military commanders were demanding orders. The High Council was scrambling. Your fleet is mobilizing, Okafor observed, certainly monitoring the same channels. They're going to try to fight us. Will you defend yourselves? Morse asked. We won't have to. As if on cue, Morse's tactical officer shouted, Ma'am, Fleet Command has ordered the 3rd Battle Group to engage the human vessels near Sector 7. They're opening fire. The screen split, showing the battle. 10 Imperial warships, the pride of the fleet, unleashed everything they had at a single human vessel. Missile swarms, energy beams, kinetic bombardment, enough firepower to crack a planet. The human ship didn't even deploy shields. It simply moved. The vessel flowed through space like water, impossibly fast, impossibly agile. Every shot missed. Every missile found empty vacuum. The ship wasn't dodging. It was somewhere else before the weapons even arrived. Then the human vessel stopped, hovering calmly amid the Imperial battle group. A single pulse emanated from it. Not a weapon. Something else. Every Imperial ship went dark. Engines offline. Weapons offline. Life support barely functioning. Disabled in an instant, the human ship didn't fire a single shot, you see, Okafor said. We don't want war. We could end this empire in a week if we chose, but that's not who we are anymore. Morse stared at the tactical display. The Empire's finest warships reduced to drifting hulks without a single casualty. It was humiliation on a scale she couldn't comprehend. Captain, Okafor continued, in a few minutes your High Council will issue orders to attack us with everything they have. They'll call it defending the Empire. They'll say we're the aggressors. Are you going to stop them? No. We're going to let them try. And when they fail, when they see how utterly outmatched they are, they'll have to face reality. They'll have to choose between pride and survival. Morse felt the weight of history pressing down on her. What happens after that choice? That depends on them. Okafor glanced away, consulting something off-screen. We're not here to conquer. We're not here to rule. We're here to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. We want your empire to acknowledge its past, to make reparations where possible, and to fundamentally change its approach to other species. And if the Council refuses? Okafor's expression turned cold. Then we'll remain here at the edge of your space, a constant reminder of what you did. Your empire will never expand again. You'll never feel secure again. Every ship, every station, every world will know that we're watching, judging, waiting. It was a fate worse than conquest, Morse realized. Eternal containment. The empire frozen in place, its ambitions dead, its pride shattered. There's a third option, Morse said quietly, which is, you could join us. Not as conquerors, but as equals. Help us change from within. Okafor smiled sadly. After what your empire did? You ask too much, Captain. Perhaps in another century when the wounds are less fresh. But not now. Not yet. The transmission from Fleet Command arrived. All ships were ordered to engage hostile forces. No negotiations, no surrender. The Empire would fight. Captain, Okafor said, I'm going to ask you to do something difficult. Stand down. Don't participate in this battle. You seem like a good person. I'd rather not have to disable your ship. Morse looked around her bridge. Her crew waited for orders. They trusted her. Whatever she decided, they would follow. She thought about the footage she'd seen. The cities burning. The families dying. She thought about everything she'd been taught. Every comfortable lie she'd believed. Helm, she said finally. Withdraw to a safe distance. We're observers only, her weapons officer protested. Captain, that's desertion. We have orders. We have illegal orders, Morse corrected. We're being ordered to attack first. They've fired on us 0 times. Every action they've taken has been defensive or informational. I won't start a war I know we'll lose. It was mutiny, technically. But it was also right. Around Imperial space, other captains were making similar calculations. Some followed orders, launching desperate attacks that accomplished nothing. The human ships disabled them effortlessly, without causing casualties, proving their point over and over. But others, like Morse, withdrew. They chose to watch, to think, to question. On the Imperial homeworld of Kelver Prime, the High Council met in emergency session. Through channels she shouldn't have access to, Morse watched the debate unfold. Some council members demanded total war. Others advocated negotiation. A few, after reviewing the historical files, argued for surrender and reparations. The Empire was fracturing along ideological lines. The comfortable consensus of centuries was shattering. Observer Thane, still at his post on Theta 7, watched the same debates. He'd spent the last hours digging deeper into archived files, finding more evidence of Imperial crimes that had been buried. The humans weren't the only species the Empire had nearly destroyed. There were others, conquered peoples whose histories had been erased. He sent everything he found to public channels. If the truth was coming out, all of it should come out. Across the Empire, people were waking up to uncomfortable realities. The propaganda was unraveling. The lies were exposed, and they had to decide who they wanted to be going forward. Admiral Okafor's fleet remained in position, patient and watchful. They'd made their point. Now they waited to see if the Empire would learn from it. In the High Council chamber, the debate raged for hours. Finally, a vote was called. By a narrow margin, the Council agreed to negotiate. They would acknowledge the genocide. They would allow independent historians to examine and correct the records. They would begin discussions about reparations. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to make up for billions of lives lost. But it was a start. When the decision was announced, Admiral Okafor appeared on screens across the Empire. "We acknowledge the High Council's decision," she said. "It's a first step, a small one, but we recognize the courage it took to admit wrongdoing." She paused, her expression stern. "Know this, we're not going away. We'll be here watching for as long as it takes. If you slide back into old patterns, if you threaten other species as you threatened us, we will act. Consider us the conscience you tried to destroy." The transmission ended. The human fleet began to withdraw, not leaving entirely, but pulling back to establish a permanent monitoring presence at the Empire's borders. Captain Morse sat in her ready room, reviewing reports. Her decision to stand down had been noted by Fleet Command. She expected court-martial, disgrace, imprisonment. Instead, she received a different message. From Commander Vera. "Captain Morse, your actions showed wisdom and courage. We need more officers willing to think rather than simply obey. Report to Fleet Command for reassignment. You're going to help us rebuild." Morse closed her eyes, feeling something like hope for the first time in days. Observer Thane received a similar message. His research, his willingness to face uncomfortable truths, had not gone unnoticed. He was being transferred to the newly formed Imperial Historical Review Commission. His job would be to help uncover and acknowledge everything the Empire had hidden. It would take decades, generations even. The Empire had to fundamentally transform itself, had to become something other than what it had been. But transformation was possible. The humans had proven that. They'd faced extinction and become something stronger, wiser, more principled. If they could change, so could the Empire. As the crisis settled into an uneasy new normal, people across Kelvari space began to process what had happened. They'd encountered ghosts from their past, and those ghosts had shown them mercy they didn't deserve. It was a gift, a chance, an opportunity to be better. Some would waste it. Some would cling to old prejudices and comfortable lies, but others would embrace the chance to build something new. In the void beyond Imperial space, the Terran remnant fleet maintained its vigil. They'd lost their worlds, but they'd kept their humanity. They'd faced the abyss and emerged with their principles intact. They were the survivors, the witnesses, the reminder that actions have consequences, even centuries later. And they would never let the Empire forget what it had done, or what it could still become if it chose a better path. The detection at Observation Post Theta 7 had changed everything. One ship, appearing where it shouldn't exist, moving faster than it should move, carrying the weight of 300 years of survival and sorrow. The Empire would never be the same. And perhaps, given time and effort and genuine transformation, that would be a good thing. Justice wasn't revenge. Justice was accountability. Justice was change. The humans had come seeking justice. Whether they found it would depend on choices the Empire made every day going forward. The past couldn't be changed, but the future remained unwritten. And for the first time in 3 centuries, that future might include a place for truth, for healing, and for hope that even the deepest wrongs could begin to be made right.